And here we go. Time for another episode of Cash's Top 5. Going to be a fun one today, a very difficult topic. Joining me today, a longtime friend and former boss, mentor. He has lots of titles. Radio legend, consultant, Mike McVay. How's it going, sir?
Very good, thank you. I'm excited to be on your podcast and particularly excited about this topic. So this will be a good one.
Yeah, we were kind of discussing what top fives we would like to do. And I know one of your favorite subjects is we were going to do top 5 wines. Unfortunately, I do have the palate of a toddler. So if it's not grape juice or high C type wine, not kind of my thing. But one thing we do both love is music. And so today we're going to be ranking our top 5 favorite cover songs of all time, which is a particularly tough topic. Given that there are tons of great cover songs throughout history. So whittling it down to a top 5 is tough, but we're going to do our best. So did you have a tough time? I assume you wanted to kind of do a little research, make sure you didn't miss any.
I did. I put the Google machine to work and, I jotted down on a piece of paper my top 5 songs, but then I kind of Googled around just to see, if I was accurate in thinking that some of them were covers, because sometimes the covers are the bigger hits. And so it was interesting doing it that way. But yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll. I got it.
All right. Well, let's kick it off. Mike, what do you have as your 5th favorite cover song of all time?
This will surprise you, and it's a song you may not know because you're a youngin', but Superstar, the song Superstar by the Carpenters. Karen and Richard Carpenter were brothers. The song was originally written by Leon Russell and Bonnie Bramlett. And they wrote it for Rita Coolidge, who's another 70s artist. They wrote it for her to record and said Karen and Richard Carpenter recorded it, and it became huge. So that would be my 5th one. It's just one of those songs that when you listen to the lyrics, it overcomes the wimpiness of the song itself. Because it's a pretty wimpy song,
Right.
But the lyrics are really good lyrics, and it's a poet. It's a poem as much as anything.
Yeah, and I think you could, if we were to do a separate top 5 list of the top 5 what ifs in music history, I think Karen Carpenter makes that list of what if we got to have her for longer, if they were able to continue making more music than they did. I mean, just such a tremendous voice and talent. Gone too soon. That's a deeper cut. I like that pick. That's not one that you would think of off the top of your head, but that's a great one. I like that. Superstar at number 5.
Thank you.
My number 5 for you has some nostalgia attached to it. Admittedly, I am not a huge Beatles fan. I do like the Beatles, but I'm not one of the major fanatics. But their version of Twist and Shout is my number 5. Originally written and then released. The Isley Brothers had a version of it, and then the Beatles did it, I believe, like the next year or 2 years later in the 63 or 64, I believe. But its version in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when he's on the float in the parade in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, swinging his arms around as he's twisting. Yeah. Exactly.
He's got the German dancers in the lederhosen kind of carrying him around. He's got his scepter. That was, as a kid watching that movie, there was nothing cooler in the world than Ferris Bueller. He was the pinnacle of cool teen. And for him to have the entire city in this movie in the palm of his hand, shake it up, baby, now. Oh, it doesn't get any better. It's so good.
Yeah, and that's a good one. The Beatles didn't cover a lot of people's music.
Oh.
But that's a really good one. My number 4 is Miley Cyrus's version of Landslide.
Interesting.
The Fleetwood Mac version is amazing. The Dixie Chicks did an amazing version of Landslide as well. And there's still some adult contemporary stations that play it. I don't know that country plays anything by the Dixie Chicks anymore. But Miley Cyrus, I saw her first do that song at a tribute. Leading up to the Grammys, they always have Music Cares, is a charity concert the night before the Grammy Awards. And they were honoring Fleetwood Mac. And she came out and sang that song, and it was just fabulous. So when I walked away, I said to a couple people how really good she was. Mm-hmm. And they told me that she had officially covered it. She has it on one of her albums. And so Landslide by Miley Cyrus, original by Fleetwood Mac, would be my number 4.
That's a really great pick, and it's unfortunate that more people won't discover it because their brains are kind of turned off. They hear Miley Cyrus and they go, "Oh, they're so used to her at this point being a punchline in the wrong hands, and being the flashy and the twerking and the headlines that unfortunately take away from the true raw talent that she has, because she is an incredible singer, and that's such a good version. And I hope that more people will open themselves to, hey, there may be a show, there may be something you don't care for that turns you off, but there is substance behind it, and that's a very good one.
Yeah, she's an amazing singer. She really is.
Yes. My number 4 for you is, it's kind of a genre that other types of this song I kind of have to be in the mood for. It's more mellow. It's definitely something you would be watching in a movie as a kind of a slow burn. But this is the song that I can listen to no matter what. Even if I'm in a really good mood, it's okay if it brings me down a little bit. It's Johnny Cash's version of Hurt by Nine Inch Nails. His voice, that gravelly early 2000s, because I believe he passed away in 2003. But that whole live album of that whole cover of album of covers is so good. But that version of Hurt is just so haunting, and you can hear it so clearly. Not even listening to it, just thinking of it, his voice is just so incredible.
Yeah, you got one of the ones I was going to go with. That was on my list too, because Trent wrote that song and did an amazing original, and you would not think that Johnny Cash would cover something like that.
No,
but he did, and that's a really good one that I jotted down. Well, one of my, again, realizing I'm doing this with you, I thought, okay, I've got a borderline rock and country as well. And so for my number 3, I did Police on My Back, the Clash version, which most people, if they know that song at all, only know the version by the Clash. But the original was done by a band called the Equals, probably 15 years earlier.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. People don't realize that was a cover. It's one of those ones, first time I heard it on a rock radio station and had the kids in the car with me, and I started to sing it. It was one of those things where my kids right away were like, wait, this was out before? How do you know this? So that's it. The Equals to the original.
That's why I wanted to have you on. I knew that there was going to be some education in this episode of cover songs. My number 3 for you, again, I feel like sometimes songs just hit you at the right time. And when you hear it, some songs for me, especially when I hear it, I can go back to the first time I heard it, because like a switch gets flipped in your brain and you're like, oh my God. And this was one, Lenny Kravitz on his greatest hits album that I have is a version, his cover of the Guess Who's American Woman.
Yeah, fabulous.
The first time I heard that crunch of that guitar, like, and I love the original version. The Guess Who, that's an iconic song from that era of music of early classic rock. You had your Deep Purple and you had your Guess Who and you had, Steppenwolf. But his version just has that crunch. And I remember being a kid getting that album because I really liked, his radio hits at the time.
Yeah.
And American Woman, Lenny Kravitz, so good.
Yeah, and I don't know, have you ever seen him perform live?
Never live. I would love to see him live. I've seen concert footage, obviously, but never in person.
Yeah, that song, I was lucky enough to go to a show in Atlanta and see him at the outdoor theater there. And it was just spectacular. It was a beautiful night. And that song and Fly just, were huge, and the audience went crazy and everybody was standing up. And it's really funny because you don't hear many Guess Who songs on classic hit stations anymore. But they did a lot of great songs. That song, Burton Cummings is the only guitar song he ever wrote. The other songs that Burton Cummings wrote were all piano songs.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
These Eyes, things like that he wrote. And then even when he went out as a solo artist, Stand Tall, those were all songs that were piano written. Only American Woman was a guitar song. Now, guess who had other guitar songs? Burton Cummings didn't write them.
Right. Wow.
What number are we at now? Is this number 3?
No, we've had Superstar, Landslide, Police on My Back. What do we have at number 2?
Number 2 already?
You can take a little bit of time if you want on the last 2.
Time's flying as I'm having fun. Well, so this is one that I know you know, and you've played on the radio before. It's the song Always on My Mind. And so it's been recorded by Brenda Lee, and then Elvis Presley covered it.
Mm-hmm.
Willie Nelson probably has the most famous version, but it was a cover. But my favorite version of Always on My Mind is by the Pet Shop Boys.
Okay, this is interesting because we both did research to make sure we didn't miss any covers. Yeah. This was one I didn't know existed, and I have not listened to it yet. I was waiting to see if it came up organically, and it's your number 2. Tell me about it. Pet Shop Boys, Always on My Mind.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the classic that you know, Always on My Mind. But if you keep in mind the Pet Shop Boys songs, their lead singer has very unusual vocals and the way he sounds.
Yes.
And they did it with some rhythm. Not real up-tempo, but more than what you get from Brenda Lee or Elvis or Willie Nelson's version. And just their take on the song is fabulous. And that's what I always looked for in a cover song. If a cover song sounds like the original, then why have that artist even do it? You know?
That's a good point. Yeah, you need to kind of put your flair on it to take it to another level. Not necessarily a higher level. That's not always going to be the case, but take it to a different space. That's true.
Yeah, and so from my opinion, this sounds like it's their song. They owned it, even though it was written before all of those guys in that band were even born. They owned it. And so I like how unique they made that song sound. And so I know everybody after they hear this podcast are going to be digging for that song.
That's exactly what I'm going to do because I was excited to listen to it. And now that I know that you have such reverence for it, I'm going to check it out. My number 2 for you is along that same vein of making it your own. For a while, I was young enough, I didn't realize that it was a cover. I thought it was just his song. But Jimi Hendrix's All Along the Watchtower, a cover of Bob Dylan.
Yep.
I don't know that there's a greater example of, no, that's his song now. You know, he's so associated with it, and it's just timeless. It's amazing.
And his version of the song, I dare say, is better than Bob Dylan's. Just because of how he delivered it and the way they produced it with some echo on his voice and that sweet guitar that only Jimi Hendrix could play like that. I mean, just amazing. So my number 1, and this is a song that I bet you know, but I bet you didn't know who it was done by originally. Walking the Dog by Aerosmith was originally done by Rufus Thomas. Rufus Thomas is a soul artist out of Detroit, had been on ABC Records, not Motown, but came out of Detroit, and he did the Aerosmith song, Walking the Dog, doing it first. Aerosmith took it later, and it was never really a hit for them, but it's one of those concert songs they do because everybody gets up and starts dancing when they do that song. And so it's really a live performance cover more than anything else.
That's so cool. When I was doing some research, I saw that, I looked up Billboard, Rolling Stone, various other entities, what their picks were for best covers of all time. And Walk This Way was one of their picks. And I'm like, that wasn't really, because they were like Run DMC's cover. I'm like, that's not really a cover. That's kind of a collaboration rehash of, to me, that's not really like what you're saying is a true cover. And I think it's great when it's live. I think that's a great distinction that you said, because my number 1 for you, which you may not count because it wasn't officially released, I don't believe. It was performed at the Rock Hall of Fame at one of the ceremony performances. I think it was 2004. It was one stage had Tom Petty, Prince, Jeff Lynne, Danny Harrison, George Harrison's son, and Steve Winwood. And their cover of While My Guitar Gently Weeps
Oh, wow.
is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite songs.
It's a
I'll have
great
to look
song.
that up. I had no idea that. I don't know if it's been released or not, but I'm sure it's VH1 tends to carry those shows nowadays.
Mhm.
So maybe I'll reach out for it. You made me think of a bonus track here, so I've got a bonus.
Oh, we can do honorable mentions for sure.
Because the Night, which Patti Smith did, Bruce Springsteen's cover of that is very good. You know, Because the Night, that song, you know, I mean, Patti Smith does it with such vim and vigor and really pushes it and makes it hard. And Springsteen has that, you know, lyricist feel that when he's speaking, every word just paints a picture.
Absolutely.
You know,
Did you have any other honorable mentions that didn't quite make the top five?
you know, I was trying to think. I mean, a Total Eclipse of the Heart, which
Yeah.
did, and then who was the? I can't think of the artist that came back a few years later and did a very up-tempo version of that. I think she was a French singer, but I like that version, the Total Eclipse of the Heart, the later version, more than I like the original Bonnie Raitt version. Um, and then you know, Joe Cocker, she came in through the bathroom window, and that goes back to also Beatles with that.
Yep.
And so, you know, those would be honorable mentions for me. How about you?
I had a couple. Marvin Gaye's "Heard It Through the Grapevine," of one of those timeless. Everybody knows that song, and for a good reason. Is it's just that fun. It's that good of a song. Kind of gets you your toe tapping a bit. Metallica did an entire album of covers in Garage Inc. Their Thin Lizzy "Whiskey in the Jar" cover is particularly fun. Little Big Town in the country realm, they never released it, I don't believe, but it was a concert staple live. They would cover Fleetwood Mac's "The Chain."
Oh,
And
nice.
that 4-part harmony of "The Chain," I still to this day, I remember being in the pit here in Indianapolis, seeing them open for Luke Bryan. That was the best live performance I've seen of anything. And I've been not as many as you, but we both have been to lots of concerts, and I still, the chills that I got watching them perform "The Chain" was just incredible. And then I got to give a shout out to Van Halen. Their cover of "You Really Got Me" by the Kinks, that guitar, you know, I like the rock stuff. I remember being a kid, my mom would crank that in the car. We'd be on the road trip over, you know, to the grandparents' farm, and she'd have on Marshall Tucker Band and Tom Petty and Head East and all these stuff. And then there'd be some harder rock, and some Van Halen would come on, and oh, so good.
Made me think of David Lee Roth and California Girls.
Oh yeah, that's another one. Yeah,
yeah, that's what just popped in my brain when you said Van Halen. You know, David Lee Roth doing his version of California Girls. You know, that was probably better than the version the Beach Boys did for the time. I mean, in the '60s, the Beach Boys were the kings, but
right.
You know, for that time.
Well, Mike, I know you got to get going, man. I appreciate so much the time you take to sit down and talk music with me. I know you're still very active in the radio world and the podcast and just overall audio creation, content creation. Where can people follow you? Where can they read your words? I know you love sharing the information. Where can people get it from you?
So you can go to my website, McVaymedia.com, MCVAYmedia.com. There you'll find the blogs, which are many of the Radio Inc. articles that I've written. You'll find me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all using Mike McVay. I've been very lucky to grab my name right away. So MIKEMCVAY, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Those are the big three for me. Not on TikTok yet. I watch it, but I'm not dancing or doing anything just yet.
I kind of can't wait for you to do the first one, though. We're all waiting for that.
Thanks for having me, Kash. I appreciate it.